Welcome back to Bleav in Texas Tech. My name is Brett Ramirez. Joined with me, as always, by Cade Welty and a very special guest, the host of Bleav in Softball, former Stanford Cardinal, Jenna Becerra. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I know we were just chatting about this before we hopped on, but it is the best time of year. It's mayhem. So
2 more guaranteed weeks of college softball. With the Women's College World Series ending on June 5th, it's coming up way too fast. Way too fast.
I know.
Jenna, I wanted to start with this. You've seen Tech, and I don't want to bring up the past, of course, because in 2010 you did play them in the regionals. Coach Shannon Hayes was coaching the Red Raider team back in the day. Now the coach of Grand Canyon. What have you seen from the days you played them back in the regional to now, with them being kind of the center of attention in college softball over the last year or so? What have you seen from the program?
I mean, I think the word that comes to mind is investment, right? I mean, whether that's Patrick Mahomes and what he has done with Adidas and just the Matador Club and what they've done to even give some of these women in this program the opportunity to come together and to play together. It's sort of that if you build it, they will come mentality, because Texas Tech was not really in the national conversation that much. They just weren't prior to this. And it's constantly now, the last couple of years, under Jerry Glasgow with Nigel Kennedy and some of these other high-profile transfers, they're in that national conversation constantly, and it's one first and one record break and one everything after another, it seems like. And I think, that is evidence as to how our sport is growing. The fact that anyone would even want to invest $1 million in one arm the way that they did for Nigel Kennedy.
Yeah, Brett, I can also kind of add to that. First games I called was under the Snyder era, 2023, 24. There was nobody there. there was nobody there. The seats, they didn't put the nice amenities. That actually didn't even get added to this year. And so when we called softball last year, I mean, that program, that the team that went on did all those things, didn't even have all the sparkles yet. So they're brand new. Also kind of stuck with me is Glasgow said, we're not building this for a year or two. We're trying to be like a destination for softball. That kind of stuck out to me because there was a lot of people who was like, well, when Nigel leaves, are you just going to be like, okay, experiment's over?
Yeah.
It's been really interesting because you see Nigel Kennedy, like, oh, why would you go to Texas Tech in the middle of West Texas, bum nowhere? She loves it out here. Caitlin Terry loves it out here. Taylor Panel, all these players have been so complimentary of Lubbock as a community. They've really come together. And Cade, you talk about Snyder and doing broadcasts. Jenna, we are student broadcasters for the Texas Tech College radio station. We do broadcasts for softball. Last year, you didn't have the awning you see at Tracy Sellers this year. It wasn't called Tracy Sellers last year. So that, like you both said, it just shows the growth of the program, the growth of college softball as a whole, and bringing it to the middle of nowhere, respectfully. It's been fantastic to see.
Yeah, I could fry an egg on the equipment last year. I could easily fry an egg. This year, not so much. But last year, I could cook a full breakfast for you for an 11 a.m. first pitch.
Well, we're going to jump into this. I'm sure, Jenna, you've definitely seen it. Everyone across the college landscape has seen it. Texas Tech did something pretty historic, I want to say, a couple days ago against Ole Miss in the regionals. You come down, you're down 8-0 at the top of the 7th inning. No team this century, 640, have done it, but Texas Tech did it in one inning, come down 8-0. They win it in extras.
Yeah, 1 and 640 now, being down 8 runs and being able to make that comeback. I think it speaks to the way that the players have come together also, because I think that was a question that myself and really everyone had coming into this year. Yes, indisputable, the top transfer class coming into Texas Tech softball across the country. So much talent coming in from a lot of programs where they had a lot of great experience. But how would they come together? When I had Jerry Glasgow on Bleav in Softball, I asked him, is there such a thing as too much talent, right? How do you make sure that they can play together? And it's not just separate puzzle pieces kind of thrown together, but really that it comes together. And he said that that's something he thought about, and the players have said that too. Jackie List talked about it as well. That was something that was top of mind for them. They wanted to make sure that they came together and played as a unit. And it's not easy when you're used to being the star potentially on a team or a star on a team. Then you come in and competition's even steeper to make it into the lineup. And that has been the case this year with Texas Tech. So to me, being able to come back like that, while people have a lot of opinions on should Ole Miss have pulled their picture and all that, there's all kinds of things that we can get into in that regard. But the fact that these women were able to do it together, I think does speak to their ability to have come together as a unit this season. And that was a message that was sent.
Yeah, Brett, you talk about that comeback, right? And you go, well, me and Brett had a full transparency. I had the tweet written up. Oh, wait. And so it was weird to watch because I'm going to say this. You're going to think we're kind of like not serious. We were laughing, but it was laughing out of disbelief more than anything because you sit there and you go, there's 2 outs left, and I look at Brett, I'm like, they scored a run. And they just kept doing it and kept doing it. And I have a fun story to share. And Brett, you can correct me on any details that are wrong.
Oh, no.
So Spearman walks. This is the Spearman walk. At this point, the whole crowd is standing up. Fans have actually returned back to the stadium. I think that's an underlying thing. These people went home knowing that they're going to have to come back at 7, so they went home and go get dinner and come back. People came back. And me and Brett are sitting there, and we can't see, and I say, Grand Slam ties it. We'll know if we look in the outfield if it's gone. It's the only way we'll know. We can't see anything else. And as I say that, I turn and look. I hear a smack of the bat, and looking up into left field, heading towards that net's a ball, and I went, there's no way. And it will go down as the greatest game I watched. It will go down as pure jubilation. There's a video that I recorded our reactions. That will be kept private because, for obvious reasons. But I think that also can go, and you saw it on the next day. Sorry to fast forward, kind of preview that other game.
No, you're good.
But
you're good.
You saw it immediately. Me and Brett had a question for each other, and Jenna, you can also kind of attest to this. We were like, what team is going to come out and show that they got their butts kicked and miraculously pulled off? And how is one team going to show up with the energy, and how's one team going to repeat what they did? And we kind of saw that. Ole Miss looked very tired. Rightfully so. You're playing until 11:30. We were there. We knew. And we saw the team that you wanted to see in February and then you saw in March, especially against Arizona. You saw that team. And then they disappeared. And it was really good to see it. And I think you kind of erased some concerns because Glasgow said it. And because I think you asked him, but I think he just said in general, this team could either lose the regional or win the whole thing. And that it's not something you want to hear before the start of a regional, but it's the honest truth.
And Jenna, you can talk about if you haven't listened to Bleav in Softball's interview with Jerry Glasgow, please do it. It's fantastic. I've listened to it at least 3 times. You can attest to this too. Coach Glasgow's going to tell you how it is.
Yeah.
He told us during the press conference after the game. He was like, "People don't realize how tough I am on these girls, but I'll be the first one to tell you I'm the most proud." And when I asked Taylor Pannell and Lauren Allred on the press conference after as well, I was like, how does it feel to make history? I was like, obviously, this isn't the end goal. Come back 8-0. It's a cool stat. Obviously, you're trying to win a national championship. How does it feel to make history? And Taylor Pannell summed it up best. He was like, this team wants to make history.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sort of the point of coming. In addition to, of course, the compensation, the NIL piece that we've talked about as well. But, the point of coming is to build something at a new destination for softball. That's why Jerry Glasgow made the move. That's why these girls have decided to come in. And I will say, Lauren Allred having that moment, she did transfer from Louisiana, right? With Glasgow himself, but she was part of that team last year. I think there's something poetic about that too, because there's so much talk about the transfers as there should be. They've been a huge impact on the program. But for her to have sort of been there through last year's history-making season and then to have that moment this year, I think it was poetic. And it's one of those reasons why it's like, how can you not get romantic about softball or about sports in general? And yeah, I think that's exactly what they're doing. They're in it to win a national championship. Jerry Glasgow has never said otherwise. He's been very clear about that, that's what their goal is. And that is that's history. If they're able to do that, that is history for their program. So they already made some last year. The whole point is to make more.
And it would also be your first major national championship. Track and field's already done that, but in terms of the landscape of viewership, that would be your first one at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Outside of women's basketball, I mean, you haven't done anything in the new century, at least. So you would be record breakers there, too.
So all this to say, women's sports is carrying Texas Tech. There you go.
There you go.
It's been fantastic to see over the last couple of years. Heck, even with Texas Tech women's basketball going back to the NCAA tournament this year as well. You talk about Lauren Allred. People don't realize that, you bring in all these big names, you bring in Mia Williams, Taylor Panel, you bring in all this power. Retention is just as important as getting new players into a system. You keep Maya Davis, you keep Lauren Allred. She's the hero last year against Oklahoma. She drove in Maya Davis to win that game. And you're absolutely right. It's poetic. That's the exact thing I said to Cade after the press conference yesterday. You said, how can you not be romantic about softball? He literally said, how can you not be romantic about sports?
Yeah.
It was insane to see. And then of course, the next day, you put up 20 in a matter of, let's say, 6 innings, outscore Ole Miss 20-2. And again, it's unfortunate. I feel for Ole Miss in the sense that you had to play again that night at 9 o'clock. That was rough, especially watching that game, because then Boston gave them a run for their money as well. You had to bring out your ace pitcher again to end that game, and then you can see the tiredness on their faces, in her drop ball and her rise ball and everything like that. Unfortunately, that's just how the game works.
Yeah, and give credit to Boston. That's a good ball club.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a good club. Casey Ricard is legit. And, you heard Ashley Waters, we did on the broadcast, saying, they asked her, like, so how long are you going to leave her in, And she was like, if anyone Casey Ricard deserves to wear that uniform on this field for as long as possible. She was like, I'm going to leave her out there. She's going to die out there. And so, yes, if you're Ole Miss and that's what you're going up against, and then the next day you have to turn around and play Texas Tech again like that, that is challenging. And I don't know that Texas Tech does what they did in that final game if the game didn't happen the way it did the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, too, if, going back to the Big 12 tournament, losing, not going, sweeping the regular season and the tournament titles like they did last year, like having a little bit of failure in that sense. And then you have to turn around quickly into regionals. It is less than a week later, you're playing again. It could have gone a few different ways. Had they not had that fight at the end, maybe they do lose that regional, like Glasgow said, but because they had some of that adversity, they fought through it. You'd rather that now than later. You would rather have that now than later. And that is the case with some of the tough early season matchups that they had too, going up against Nebraska and other people. Like, that's what's going to build it and get you there in the end. So I think they needed it in a way. Sounds funny, but they might have.
No, I definitely agree with you, Jenna. They definitely need it because it goes back to like what everyone says. When you piece a team together through the portal and 90% of your production is portal additions, you don't know how they're going to play with each other. Because at the end of the day, people go, well, I've always heard the stipulation that baseball and softball, it's a one-on-one sport. Yes, until I hit a ball to short, and then now it's a 2-on-1. And so it's not a one-on-one sport. It was really good to see that come back because it went back to something we had asked for on a broadcast. And Brett, you got to tell me which one. We have a very simple phrase: pass the baton. Stop trying to hit home runs. Pass the baton. And it would come and go. And Brett, you call it the dentist game. Nobody wants to be at the dentist. Nobody wants to play those grunge matches, but you have to play them. The team kind of didn't want to do that, and it was again. Your back's against the wall for the first time this year because you had the most wins in D1. You had the least amount of losses, obviously. Nobody wanted to play you, so you didn't get given a chance. So you earned it there. And Liz also spoke about it. Jet and Brenna. Whoa, Brett. Jet Ramirez is with me. Liz said it was nice to prove to people that we can win games without the long ball.
Yeah.
because Nathan Geese, Avalanche Journal, asked the question. They hit one home run across Friday and Saturday when they dropped 10 runs. When they had multiple double-digit runs, they didn't hit many home runs. I think they hit 3 in totals. Panel, Liss, and Allred. 3 home runs to, here's your number, 34 runs scored.
And that's what champions have to do. You have to be able to score in different ways. If you rely on any one-dimensional approach to the game is not going to last. It doesn't get you to Oklahoma City typically, and it's not going to last through it. So, like, that is something that maybe they needed that reminder for themselves, you know. And I think it's one thing we know logically that anyone can beat anyone on any given day. You can't just show up and win. Now, this roster, if you look at it on paper, it almost seems like it. Like they can't just show up and win sometimes. But we know that that's not true. But it's another thing to feel it. And I think they felt that, and it was the kick and the boost that they needed.
No, for sure. And I mean, especially with a team like this, of this caliber, whenever you lose, you're going to be put under the spotlight immediately. When you win, it's not that big of a deal. It's what you expect to happen. When you lose, you get 45 comments under your Twitter post saying, without a cool graphic saying final, other team 10, your team 5. It's just that's the nature of now. You're a place to be the villain coming into this season because you invested so heavily into this. Unfortunately, there's the other side of it where you're down 8-0 against Ole Miss, who people don't see as the cream of the crop of the SEC. You struggled against a mid-tier SEC team, and now you're going to have to play the number 6 seed nationally overall in Florida in Gainesville. Like you're going to get pelted. And it could happen. I'm not trying to say Florida's not fantastic. They're great. We'll get to that in a second. But it's like, what do you expect them to just heel over and die? Like, if you're down 8-0, you might as well just try to come back. So they should just give up.
That's not a productive mindset to have.
Exactly.
Even for fans. It's like, you can't win though in that sense. There's something about, I forget what the exact saying is, but about being the man in the arena, right? Versus the people who are watching it. Like, you can't win in that sense, in terms of moral victories, but that's something I bring up constantly when I'm broadcasting. Especially some of the toughest games to call are the ones where they appear to be blowouts. Because it's very one-sided and the storytelling is harder in that sense. But it's like, okay, if I am the head coach in that situation, the coaching staff, teammates, all of them, what I would like to see is fight. Because how are you going to build from then on if you don't show that at the end? Like, you are trying to put some building blocks in place to help you get better. Always. Even if you're the ones blowing them out, it's like, okay, well, what can we build on here from that game to the next one? So, yeah, that's, like, silly to me to think otherwise.
Oh, we wish we were broadcasting. Oh, do we wish that. And we got to call the Baylor game where they almost came back, you know. Win some, lose some.
After the practices on Thursday for each of the teams, she went up and did her little media availability, and someone's like, hey, what do you feel about everyone's picking you to win? Because a lot of people were picking Texas Tech to win the national championship this year. Which makes sense. And the draw, yes, I know, Cade, we did too. But someone asked Mia Williams, like, hey, what do you feel about all this stuff on social media? She said it very bluntly. She was like, we don't care about that. We're focused on Marist. We're focused on Ole Miss. We're focused on the game in front of us. And I think people are going to be like, well, duh, that's how softball works. That's how you should be when you're a sport. But it's different when you have the entirety of a sport landscape being like expecting you to win so much.
Yeah.
You were slated as the 1A, 1B with Texas to start the year. A team that beat you. And they were like, hey, there you go. You're number 1. And the moment you lost it, they wanted to pull you down and say, you suck. You know, you can't do both, by the way. It's impossible. You can't put them on a pedestal and then take the pedestal away from them when you were wrong about the pedestal. But I have some fun stats for you guys. We'll kind of I want to get you guys' reactions to this. Last year in the regional, you won all 3 games you played, didn't have to worry. You won 6-0 against Brown, 10-1 against Mississippi State, and 9-6. You only allowed 7 runs. And this regional, you score 34, but you allow 14. You allow a bit more runs. Here's your caveat. Your third pitcher on your roster allowed 7 of those runs. And that being Samantha Lincoln. No shot to Samantha Lincoln. I'm just stating the fact that when you start to move to supers, if you're going to have Nyjah and KT, you shouldn't see Samantha Lincoln if things are going right. I kind of want to get you guys' reactions to that, because for how different the vibes are now in a year retrospective to now, you kind of won similarly. Like, you actually played this full length in 2 of them. You only run rolled in 1 game. Compared to now, you run roll in 2. So you played a 7-2 and you run roll 1.
I think with Caitlin Terry in particular, so we talk about the transfer class as a whole being the top class, and this is something I even talked about with NCAA softball prior to the year kicking off. She, I think, is probably, I would give her the number 1 transfer in terms of value add, and that's within that fantastic class because of her ability to play both sides of the ball. But to take some of the pressure off Nyjah in the circle is absolutely huge. She, having that World Series experience before, knows what it's like to have to come back in those tough situations. Like, she has done it all from that perspective. She almost nearly, it felt like, single-handedly took UCLA to the Pac-12 championship in 2024, because she threw almost every single pitch of that tournament. So she gets it. But then you also add on to what even Jerry Glasgow was a little bit surprised, knew she could hit, didn't know she could hit like that. And so just the two-way capability there's a reason she was in the top 10 for National Player of the Year finalists, coming into this. So when you have options like that and different looks, right? Righty with Nyjah, you have the lefty with KT, there's just some variety there. You're going to be dangerous. And so I think she's been talked about some this year, but maybe I still don't think maybe enough with just the difference that she makes. So if you talk about from last year to this year, to me, that's one of the biggest.
It's crazy to say she doesn't get the talk, considering she is one of the top 10 in the country. You talk about Jerry Glasgow didn't know she could hit that well. It was kind of the same with Nyjah when she transferred here from Stanford. She wanted to have more of a hitting role, and that she changed the way she played the game a little bit more, playing on both sides of the ball. And now Caitlin Terry, who was mainly a chop hitter, that's what she did in the World Series last year against Texas Tech specifically. That's how they got their last out. She chopped in the midfield, and they threw and they tagged to end the game for Texas Tech to move on. Caitlin Terry absolutely elevated her game, and that's what people don't understand is on the side of recruiting and transfers is you still have plenty of room to develop. And it takes the right kind of coaching staff. It takes the right kind of coach itself, the kind of player to be like, all right, this is what I'm not very good at. This is what I can be good at. Like Caitlin Terry's case, tongue twister, my goodness. Jerry Glasgow was like, I think you could be a power hitter. And she was like, whoa, okay, I'll trust you.
That speaks to Jerry, though, because to be able to get the buy-in, because I remember we had Caitlin Terry on the D1 softball podcast this season and asked her about it. Like, what do you think clicked so much? And she really referenced to trusting Jerry Glasgow. And that takes a lot, especially when you don't have the history of your entire career being with that particular coach leading up to that point. So her just trusting into the process. And, people always talk about he brings the pitching machines everywhere he goes and he has his system. But truly every staff he's been a part of, hitting has been his bread and butter. So I think that plus you bring in the arms that are Nyjah and KT. Don't forget that part, right? That's the other part of the game. You have to score runs to win. And so there is a development aspect there. And Jerry has such an interesting background where development has been at the forefront. So yes, he's still doing that, and being able to get the buy-in is a lot harder than it sounds, but he's made it look easy.
Yeah, KT this year hit 10 home runs. That would be good for second on the team last year because Nyjah led you last year. You want to talk about offense and the crazy spectacle of that? Yeah, last year your team leader was also your ace. And that also kind of goes into a point that we've discussed here as tech media, but really just me and Brett and partly Joel. It seems like here in the later parts, this team can go as far as Nyjah can go. Because right now, KT is practically unhittable over her last couple starts. Yes, she was not great against Arizona State. Arizona State had 3 games of film on her. But we saw yesterday that Nyjah, when she needs it, she can still get it. And so it's kind of a 50-50 if we're still cruising, because we're still managing that oblique injury, because she couldn't play in the Arizona State series. They had to rest her. Or is just kind of what we've gotten. There's just been some discourse on that, and I just kind of want to get y'all's thoughts on it, because I've seen people say that, like, hey, why would we pay Nyjah this much for this talent? By the way, she signed that deal before they played Texas, so I don't want to hear that, but still.
Well, she signed the first deal, the first $1 million, before Tech did anything. So, I mean, last year it was, 99% on her shoulders in a lot of ways, including the pressure that goes along with it. Of course, a lot of pressure is going to be on the head coach always. Like, it comes down to you. So Jerry certainly had plenty of pressure. But in terms of on the roster, the players, she had the pressure to manage. And luckily, she did have World Series experience already and those types of things. But last year, she is the one. She was the one. She threw every single pitch in the World Series, and she said it, at the press conference afterwards at one point, like, I'll rest in the off season. That's not what this is for at this point. Now, not having to do that, but still having that competitive drive at the same time, like, that's ideally where you want to be. So it's not all on her, in my opinion, anymore. Now, her and KT are going to be going up against some great offenses. So, yes, it's the strategy piece. It's the preparation, the scout, all of those things that they'll be working on with Tara Archibald, right? Like, to prepare from that perspective. But I think, like, it doesn't have to be all on her at this point. And that was the point coming into this season.
For sure. We're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we'll talk a little bit about the Big 12 and Texas Tech's matchup going forward. So, we'll be right back. Big 12's doing pretty good themselves. I'm not going to lie. 4 teams, Arizona State, Texas Tech, UCF. Who am I forgetting?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, thank you. They even hosted the regional. That's embarrassing. No, have made it onto the Super Regionals. Arizona got close. Duke won 2 games in a day over there in Durham for that regional, so they got knocked out. Baylor lost to Texas. The Big 12 got underrated going into the Super Regional round. I mean, Arizona State was playing with fire. UCF had a fantastic offense all season, and you got to see it against Florida State. They took advantage of the situation with Florida State losing to Stetson, who Texas Tech would have played Stetson and Florida State in the same weekend earlier in the year. It's been great to see the Big 12 do so well. It's been great to see with how much slack they've gotten over the last couple months.
I mean, getting 7 bids in the first place into the NCAA tournament was big for them. But I think what's impressive to me, as you said, at 4 moving on to Super. So 4 out of the 7 moving on to the next round. I mean, within 48 hours, 48 teams are eliminated. It's Elimination Saturday and then Sunday of the final kind of push going into Supers. It's a lot. It's a big change there. So for them to do that, I think, was a big deal. But specifically for 2 to do it on the road, to essentially, eliminate the hosts and the national seeds, that was, I think, a big deal too. So it's like 2 of the 4 being able to do that, 2 of the 3 in total who are not national seeds, who were able to move on coming from the Big 12. You have to give the credit there. I mean, Arizona State going undefeated too. They didn't even have to go to that if necessary game. Pretty impressive. I mean, the momentum going from the tournament for the Big 12 in Oklahoma City to then going to the NCAA tournament, like, that is clear. They are clearly riding that wave for as long as possible, as they should. And then UCF did have to go to the if necessary game against the ACC regular season and tournament champions, and consistent player in the postseason scene like a Florida State, and being able to take down a national seed. They broke the losing streak that UCF had in the NCAA tournament against Florida State specifically, and then it's their second Super Regional in program history. Like, so many things that they were able to kind of accomplish in one swoop is a big deal. So I do think the Big 12 should get its flowers.
We saw it firsthand. I mean, we called. We're going to keep going back to that. We called the games because, well, that's what our job was for the spring. We saw so many games that, especially for Tech, the box score doesn't reflect what the game was. There was 2 games against BYU where you're 3-3 and it ends up being 10-3 because you have a 7th run 5th and you walk it off. And that's great. Love that you did that, but I feel like a lot of people just saw, Tech. Okay, that's all the Big 12 is. And it also hurts that the Big 12 lost now Texas and OU, the last 2 World Series champs, right? And you're kind of like, well, there's nobody left. Well, Arizona State is a good program. Arizona is one of the most historical programs of all time. And UCF is finally putting the resources back in the programs they should be. Oklahoma State's doing Oklahoma State. Good job, Oklahoma State.
It's so ironic that I forgot to mention Oklahoma State when, in a matter of a week, they took down Oklahoma and Texas.
I don't know how you forgot that. Because in the last show we did, you picked that. I think Arizona State's the biggest story for me, just because they're not talking about them still. I hear pitcher conversations and Kinsey Brown's name's never mentioned. Kinsey Brown single-handedly beat Tech. She must hate Tech, by the way, because Tech 2 years in a row has beat her to win the regular season title. She finally got her get back.
She got the last laugh.
Yeah, and so the Big 12 is great. I think this goes across every sport. I know we're talking about softball, but it's just discounted because they're not getting the big contracts from media deals. They're not on national television as much. The Big 12 is competitive. And I wouldn't be shocked if you have 2 of the 4 teams move to the World Series. I wouldn't be shocked. I ain't going to list you the other 3 because those are wild cards. But,
I wonder.
Arizona State, if they're hot, like you said, can take down Texas. Because Texas lost to Oklahoma State. Texas at one point in the year didn't look as good. Now they're back. Nebraska, can they score runs? Oklahoma State can. Can they score runs? Brett, and that's kind of where you're at. UCLA's a wagon.
They had adversity this weekend too.
Oh, I know. I was up late watching that one, Brett.
That was a fantastic game. I loved watching that game.
But the Big 12 is deep, and I'm not going to be shocked if 2 teams make the World Series. I won't be shocked if 3. I'll be shocked if none make it.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State is also sometimes easy to take for granted in the sense of, prior to last year, it was 5 straight Women's College World Series under Kenny Gajewski, so you just kind of assume, the Cowgirls are going to be there. All right. They're always in the mix sort of thing. And they had some bumps early on in the season. They did, but that's also because they had some tough matchups on the schedule. And they got some big wins. They had some tough losses at the same time. But Ruby's growth from the beginning to now, astronomical. It is, and I don't even just mean physically in her execution, but just her mental approach. We had her on the D1 Softball podcast too, and she talked about it, how it's very much more of a team-oriented mindset now, and she's really acts like an ace. She has nearly tripled the amount of innings as Riley Crandall, the next person on staff for Oklahoma State. And the fact that I think she's 29 wins on the year, and she has over 20 complete games that she's thrown. Stanford, who they faced in the regional, there's 6 in total for the entire staff, complete games on the year. So in a by-committee world that we live in with the pitching staffs, Ruby's still being that ace. It's just very impressive what she's been able to do. And it's a bit of a rematch. There's so much familiarity there with Nebraska. They'll play them for a 3rd time. The Jordy, Ruby growing up in that state and knowing each other and having all of that background, that's always going to be a story. And so I think that is going to be, to me, one of the most interesting. It's one of 2 non-SEC super regional sites, but I think it's going to be one of the most interesting ones.
Jenna, do we have a perfect bracket? Do you have a perfect bracket so far?
No.
Okay. No. I was gonna say. Okay. We had Florida State instead of UCF,
and we had Duke. We had Arizona instead of Duke.
Okay. Yeah.
So we got 2 wrong.
So close on that one.
Because we picked Mississippi State over Oregon, and we picked Arizona State over A&M.
You know what? That's not that bad. I'll take it. I guess now we can look at Texas Tech, Florida. We can address the elephant in the room. Mia Williams goes back to Gainesville, grew up in Florida, legacy child down there in Gainesville in Florida. A lot, of course, everyone knows about the discourse that happened in the offseason last year. And again, someone asked Mia Williams about that in the media availability again. What do you have to say about the potential to play Florida in a regional? She said, I don't care. I'm trying to worry about the game in front of me right now.
Yeah.
But Texas Tech, Florida, I think this is, a lot of people are picking this to be the most intriguing matchup of the weekend. Storyline, Florida, 2 straight women's college World Series appearances. Texas Tech trying to get back to theirs. Another SEC team trying to make it back again. This was the one I told Cade, I was like, if it's not Tennessee, Texas Tech, it's going to be Florida, Texas Tech. You're going to go to the SEC some way or another, and that's just how it's going to go.
I said this preemptively right after the presser on Sunday. Sunday? Oh, Sunday, right?
I think Sunday, yeah.
It's only been 24 hours, but it was such a long weekend that, Jenna, we spent like 30-plus hours at Tracy's.
I believe it.
I
believe it.
We were trapped in the cellar. They wouldn't let us leave, okay? So, comparing Florida and Tech, I kind of said this in terms of just how I visualized it, not in terms of the actual stats. It's just a more souped-up version of Ole Miss, in my opinion, in terms of how they're able to. I think the peak of Ole Miss is the floor of Florida, which is very scary because you saw the peak of Ole Miss. They put up 8-0 and skunked you until we saw a pitcher go 150 pitches for no reason. And I'm not worried in the fact that for Tech, if you get the version, the problem is this year, if you don't get the version you got on Sunday, this one gets a little spicy. I think this one goes to 3, though. If I had to pick any super regional to slate to 3, don't even have to look at the stats, it's this one. By a landslide.
By a landslide?
Okay. By a landslide. I think so. That or Oklahoma, Mississippi State. Another great series, by the way. Gosh, pitching first. Absolute too many home runs. Beautiful. But yeah, Florida is going to give Texas Tech a big issue. The problem is Florida's deep also in their pitching staff. Like, they can kind of throw anybody, and you're going to have a difficulty with it. Can Tech hit a non-fly ball pitcher? If they can do that, they can win the series. If they can't do that, we'll get our hotel refund back. You know.
Jenna, another big storyline going into this game is it's a bit like Cade said, it's a pitching battle. Keegan Rothruck has been playing unreal this season. A 2.42 ERA, she's number 55 nationally, 179 strikeouts, 82 walks. The biggest thing for me is she's made a living on her rise ball. And Texas Tech is a team that loves to hit high in the zone. So for Florida to succeed, you're gonna have to keep Rothberg's gonna have to keep control of her velocity, of her speed. But Texas Tech is also have to be careful because, of course, with a rise ball pitcher, you also have someone that can slice. You have someone that can go to the change of the off speed. This is a very methodical game, methodical series.
Yeah, I think with any matchup, like that goes back to the preparation. So I think for pitching in a general sense, this is something I notice as a trend across the board. Your rise ball better jump because anything that is left over but elevated in the zone is going to leave the yard, especially when you go against offenses like we're going to see in super regionals. Like, they got there for a reason. So in that sense, like, yes, like Rothrock will have to make sure that she is on point with locating. It's like the precision piece. Like, this is when that becomes even more important than it was even earlier in the season. Like, this is what it all comes down to. But, there are different approaches you can take as hitters. If you like that, you can get up in the box and try to catch it before it moves. Or if you want to be a little bit more disciplined, see more pitches, get in the back of the box and let it break and don't chase those pitches. It's all going to depend on like what feels right and what the preparation, the scout looks like, because that is the thing too that I don't know if people realize how much goes into the scout for the coaching staff. Unbelievable amount of work. Yes, there's more technology, there's more data, there's more everything. That means more work to have to go through all of it. And that goes for the opposite too. The hitters that Nyjah, KT, and the pitching staff are going to have to face against Florida, you have to go look at all of that data too, and that's what Tara's going to do. So it's so much that goes into it. So as the coach, you're trying to prepare your players enough to where they don't have to overthink it in the moment. Here's the plan. We did all like this background sort of preparation. Here's the plan. Here's why we're doing it. Let's go out and execute. So it all comes back to simplifying. That's really what it comes down to.
Trust your work is the name of the game, and I think it goes for across everything you do, especially in sports. Trust your work. A stat the SEC people in the SEC talked about. I thought it was interesting. Florida, of course, number 7 in home runs on the year, over 100, but only 11 against left-handed pitchers. The team does not like to hit against lefties. Shout out lefties. I love y'all. I'm a lefty. That's KT. And we've seen KT. She doesn't really. She loves the big moment. So I think you're going to see a steady dose of Caitlin Terry. Controversial opinion, I know, but she's the X factor for Texas Tech going into this weekend.
Ole Miss's head coach Jamie, she talked about how when they went against Nyjah on Saturday, when they talked about it, was like, hey, we've gone against pitchers like Nyjah in the SEC. Like, there is multiple versions. No, Nyjah is her own pitcher, her own self, but the stuff, just get rid of the jersey with the ball coming at you. They said they've seen that kind of stuff, and that's why they could feel like they're going to be effective with it. Malvin talked about it a lot. She said, I felt comfortable with that. And then you saw him go against KT, and Brett kind of alluded to this, and we spoke about it. There isn't a pitcher like KT in the SEC as much, really, in the country, because her stuff, she has a huge arsenal. I've seen her throw a pitch, and then she's never thrown it again. I'm like, one time, she threw the nastiest slider I've ever seen, and then never brought it out again. And I was like, where's that been? So I think Brett's right on the terms of that is the key to success. If KT can have a clean game and you can scrape across 4 runs, because this year the Red Raiders, at least under Glasgow, in his 2 seasons, they allow 5 runs when they lose, and they score a run and a half. That's the stat from 2 years. That's with 2 different teams, 2 different offensive styles. That is the stat. So if KT keeps it under 5 and you score more than 2, probably going to result in a win.
Well, Jerry Glasgow talked about it with Tara Archibald, how because to me this goes back to preparation. You said it, sometimes she'll save certain pitches in certain situations for certain moments on purpose. And Glasgow compared it to Jen Rocha from Oklahoma, where he's like, I'll be waiting for it. Like, oh, they made one of our hitters look really silly with the changeup there. We're waiting for it to come again, and then she doesn't use it, right? So it's like this guessing game, and that's really what it is. You're trying to keep hitters off balance, but like all of that is strategic. All of that goes into that preparation, and that's actually, I think, what pitchers find to be the most fun part of it is the sequencing, is the setup, and how can you sort of play this chess game with each hitter.
I will say, as a former catcher, it is the most fun thing you can ever do, because you go back to the dugout and you're like, they can't hit that. Throw it again. And it's the best part of the game.
Towards Texas Tech, you win this series, you go to the Women's College World Series. Jenna, this is one of the question I've been wanting to ask you all day. What do you think is the outcome of the Gainesville Super Regional?
It's so hard to say, especially after what we just witnessed for regionals, right? Because there's so many things that we think are going to happen based on what's on paper, and then it's who shows up that day, what version of the team shows up, etc. So all of those things make it really difficult. I do think if I had to choose right now that I would say Texas Tech is coming out. I would be shocked, to your point, Cade, if it doesn't go 3 games. I would be shocked if it didn't have to go to that if necessary.
My reason for why they win it, I don't even care about who's the players, is because Glasgow doesn't lose series. His only series lost is the World Series. It's the only one he's lost at Tech. And this year as a team, they've yet to lose back-to-back. They don't know what that's like to lose 2 straight, and you have to lose 2 straight. Fun fact. I don't know if anybody knew that. You have to lose 2 straight, by the way. You have to lose 2 games to be out of the Supers. So that's why I'm going to pick them. I'm also going to pick them because of timely hitting. For some reason, this team has a lot of clutch hitters, and it's beautiful. Also, we have Jackie Liss. There's your answer. Jackie Liss.
I think Kenzie Brown prepared Texas Tech for this matchup. I think with the elite pitching you saw throughout the Big 12, you play that team 4 times. You see Kenzie Brown 3 times, I believe. I don't think it's nothing you can't handle, and that's no disrespect to Florida. I think it's a fantastic offense. It's one of the more well-rounded teams in America. But I think Texas Tech, like Cade said, has that timely hitting, knows how to hit against these pitchers now. I think, like y'all said, it goes to 3. I think Texas Tech comes out of it.
I don't think it's easy to play in the swamp, to be clear. But I also think Tech has done it before. You know, they went to Tallahassee last year and really absolutely dominated the Super Regional. I don't know that there's going to be that kind of level of domination either way this year. But playing on the road in that sense, they've done it before. So I don't know that that's like the biggest deterrent, even though it's not easy to play there.
The last 2 times the Texas Tech team has been in the postseason, basketball and football, with the exception of women's basketball, has been in Florida. Texas Tech in the college football playoffs ended their season in Miami, 22-0 against Oregon. And then Texas Tech basketball lost in Tampa Bay to Alabama in March Madness. So I really hope they're able to break the streak this time around and get to the Women's College World Series. But one of the basketball players going into this game, going into the Tampa Bay part of the bracket March Madness was like, "I love Florida." That's all he had to say about the challenge. We were like, that is the worst thing you could say at that time. And then Coach Glasgow, and a completely different stature, he was like, "Oh, I like Florida." I was like, "Oh no."
I mean, you could argue that it just means that they're comfortable and they're not.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
There, so.
For sure. I was going
to say, you have to remember, they only lost 1 game in the Clearwater tournament, too.
Yeah.
Like, Tech loves playing in Florida.
So you like, this would have been, if you didn't get that Florida State Stetson matchups canceled, this would have been your 4th visit to Florida.
They were secretly preparing, Brett. Secretly preparing. They knew it. The script writers knew they had to go to Florida.
You got 3 opinions. You can form your own. Texas Tech would think Texas Tech will beat Florida. Who's your national champion?
This year, that's probably the hardest to answer than it has been in many years at this point. Because I think during the 4-peat and even last year, it was easy to feel like you could just say Oklahoma, of course. Texas was obviously on the list for people, and they ended up doing it. I honestly, I just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I really don't know, especially at this point in the season. I think after Super Regionals, I think is very telling, and I don't know if that's because of my own trauma, if you will, in the postseason. Because twice I went to Supers, both times down to like 1 out away from making it to the World Series, and then ended up losing, and it was brutal, right? So I think in that sense, I'm always like, well, Supers are sometimes the things that I zoom in on the most because of that. So it's really hard to say. I know that's kind of a cop-out.
No, that's all good.
I feel like for Nebraska, I will say, if they can hit. If they can hit is probably the caveat. I think they're going to go further than maybe some people thought. And Jordy's been there and won there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of hard to compete with that kind of, And I do think Alabama's, in the mix there. Their non-conference schedule was not strong this season, but like they did show up in the regular season for the SEC, and they do have every part of the game aligned right now. They have the pitching, they have the hitting. Defense has been solid, so I think they're in the best position they've been in since they won it back in 2012. In that sense too. But see, now I can believe
the team that plays at the Cellar. that is the team that can win. Now, if I'll give you another team just so you don't think I'm being biased. I honestly believe. No, this is just because this is recency, but it's just the way they've been playing recently. Mississippi State could easily go and do this. They could. They could. If Mississippi State beats OU in the Super, Mississippi State makes the finale, makes the Women's College World Series championship finale, and we're good. If they don't, then obviously they can't make it. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, hey, I'm that's all I do around here. I'm not gonna.
I will say I don't know that UCLA has the depth in pitching. They're an absolute buzzsaw in terms of their offense, but I don't think that they have the depth in pitching that you have to have in the World Series.
Brett, what's yours? I gave 2. Jenna gave 2. Where's yours?
I do like Arkansas a lot. I think they take care of Duke, and the draw is going to be. If the draw works for them, I could easily see them getting back to the final. If Tech is able to take down Florida, I don't see why they can't go all the way. Cade, we were talking about it during the game on Saturday. We was like, man, this is trouble. And then you're down to your 2 outs. You have 2 strikes, and they come back all the way. And I was like, that's a team that can win the national championship. And you see it right there because you didn't have to deal with a lot of adversity throughout the year, but then you finally saw it, like we said earlier. And I think they're not afraid of the moment. Taylor Panel, what Taylor Panel says goes apparently because they said this team wants to make history. Who am I to say? Yeah.
So many of the players who did transfer to Tech have World Series experience from literally last year.
Yep.
So there isn't any sort of intimidation from that perspective, because I think for some people the moment can feel really big. It can feel really big when you make history, but I think Texas Tech has been doing that. That's actually why they came to the program. All of those things. I feel like people forget sometimes that Texas is the reigning national champs, and Texas Tech was right there in the champ series because we always end up talking about all these other teams sort of around them, but those two, it's like, yeah, don't forget that they were the ones there at the end. Yeah.
Because Texas was playing the Texas Tech role the last few years. They were always right there. But in Oklahoma was Oklahoma. So I'll say Arkansas or Texas Tech.
I also love how people forgot that both of those teams got better.
Yeah.
In different aspects. And they're like, yeah, those 2 teams that play for national title, no.
Yeah.
They're not good anymore. Even though, hey, we got Jackie Liss. We got Taylor Panel, Williams,
This is the great thing about this time of the year, especially with this season, is there's no chalk. Anything can happen, literally. It's gonna be one hell of a Women's College World Series here in a week and a half. But I think that is going to do it for today's episode. Jenna, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I mean, talking softball in May, that's the dream, right?
11 a.m. Eastern.
11 a.m. Eastern, so 10 over here. Softball. Watch women's sports. Watch college softball. If you don't do that, you're doing yourself a disservice. This has been Bleav in Texas Tech. Wreck 'em.